Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of the DFO DFS show. I'm Brock Seguin. Today we have a 5-game slate. It was supposed to be a 6-game slate, but the Dallas Stars and Nashville Predators got canceled again. Sorry for coming on a little bit earlier than normal today. We had about 2 feet of snow where I'm at in Ontario yesterday. So had to drive the fiance into work this morning, and I got to pick her up later. So kind of rushing around today, and that's why we're on a little bit earlier today. I think probably for some of you guys, this earlier time slot works better. But for the most part, we're going to stick with the 5:15 time slot moving forward. If you're new to the show, please feel free to drop any comments in the comment section, and I will get to them as I go throughout the show. And then anything that you do see in the Google Sheets this afternoon is available if you become a DFO Premium subscriber. You can join DFO Premium by going to dailyfaceoff.com, scrolling up and clicking Go Premium. And you can do that for as little as $9.99 a week, $19.99 for the month. You get a lineup optimizer as well, and you get to join our Discord channel where we're talking DFS all day long. Late slate breaking news in there as well. If anybody's injured or a goalie ends up not starting or whatever the case may be, I alert the Discord channel and allows you to make any changes that is necessary for your DFS lineup. So, if we revisit yesterday quickly, pretty good night all in all. Ottawa 2 is my favorite value stack of the night. 2 goals by Dodonov in an absolutely crazy comeback win over the Maple Leafs. Colin White also had, I think, just 1 assist, but still a pretty decent night. And then all of our top stacks really had solid nights. So a good night last night. We'll look to kind of continue the momentum. Into tonight. Alvin to the show got me off of Columbus 1 yesterday and onto Edmonton 1, which helped cash on FanDuel. So thanks. Let's do it again. Yeah, like I said, obviously Columbus 1, when you changed that, you were probably a little frustrated because they scored almost instantly. Full line goal, which was probably a little scary for you, but then they got shut down for the rest of the game, which I kind of expected. So I was a little nervous too because I was fading them hard, and then they scored immediately. I'm like, oh shit, are they going to stay red hot? They didn't, so that's good. But let's talk about today's 5-game slate. If you're just arriving, Dallas and Nashville postponed as well. There are a lot of question marks in terms of both goaltenders and some of the lineups tonight, just because of the lack of morning skates. Also, a couple teams just returning to action after long COVID breaks. So the first game is the Rangers and the Devils. It's unclear who's going to start for the Devils. Mackenzie Blackwood, obviously their number 1 goalie. He is back off the COVID list. But yesterday was his first practice in about a month. I think his last game action was January 19th. His first practice back was February 15th. So almost an entire month off. So I have... I doubt that he's going to start tonight. Scott Wedgwood was, okay. After Blackwood went out, Eric Comrie, he had a really good outing in his only start before they kind of got shut down there. So I would imagine it'll be Wedgwood or Comrie for the Devils tonight as they kind of get some more work for Blackwood in practice. But again, all their lineup information is going to be released in warmups. So even their line combinations aren't 100% set in stone. They didn't release anything like that. The only thing we do know for sure is their power play units are going to look like this. They did run those, but we don't know how the lines are going to shake out. I kind of had to guess at their line combinations, but I think that I'm going to be pretty accurate here because based off of the jersey color they wore in practice yesterday, these lines make the most sense. And it was just kind of some of these were lines that they were playing with prior to the shutdown. So I think I'm pretty accurate here. I would be surprised if there's too many drastic changes. So I think you can go off this, but just keep in mind it's something you're going to want to keep an eye on in warmups if you're playing the Devils tonight. From the Rangers' perspective, Artemi Panarin remains out. K'Andre Miller is out. So a couple changes for them there, but nothing crazy. Anyways, moving on here, we got the Penguins and the Capitals, Tristan Jarry versus Vitek Vanacek. Vanacek making, I believe, his 11th or 12th consecutive start. Ilya Samsonov remains in the AHL as he works back. And that's kind of where I'm coming from when I'm talking about Blackwood, right? I mean, Samsonov, he had to go to the AHL to get some starts in. And, Blackwood did talk about how he was having trouble breathing and stuff with COVID-19. He was positive. So I would be shocked if he comes back. I mean, if the Capitals aren't going right back to Samsonov, I'd be surprised if the Devils go right back to Blackwood. We expect to see Carter Hutton for the Sabres, considering it's a back-to-back. Ilya Sorokin, likely again. I mentioned on the show yesterday that I was a little skeptical about the fact that He was likely yesterday just because it was a Buffalo reporter that kind of said it. But he is likely today, and it was an Islanders reporter that is reporting this. So I feel much more confident, especially on the tail end of a back-to-back, that it will be Sorokin this time around. Unclear who starts for the Kings unless it was confirmed in the last 15 minutes when I was, getting ready for the show. Capo Kakinen expected to go for the Wild, although also unconfirmed. Cam Talbot remains on the COVID-19 list as far as I know. So it looks like Kakinen will start tonight. Marc-Andre Fleury going to continue to start for the Vegas Golden Knights because Robin Lehner is not ready yet. And Philip Grubauer confirmed to start for the Avalanche. So a nice little 5-game slate, a lot of exciting teams on tonight's slate, a couple games that look like they could be relatively high scoring, really interesting from DFS perspective. So let's get into it and talk about top stacks of the night. We'll obviously start with the Devils and the Rangers. Now, keep in mind what I just said a couple minutes ago. It looks like the Devils lines we're not 100% certain on, but if it is Andreas Johnsson, Jack Hughes, and Jesper Bratt, they come in as the top stack of this game. Not necessarily the entire slate for this game. They look like the best stack, with New York 2 coming in as the second best stack. Even though Artemi Panarin is out, Ryan Strome and Capo Kakko have had a decent amount of success without Artemi Panarin in the past. Obviously not nearly as good with Lafreniere on that wing, but it doesn't hurt. And both these lines are extremely cheap tonight. So the fact that they both have pretty positive 5v5 scores coming into tonight is obviously a good sign. New York 1 lags a little bit behind, just above average at 1.52. Like I said, Zibanejad, that line just really hasn't gotten things going like they did last year. Obviously, moving Buchnevich down and Colin Blackwell up hurts their numbers as well. So not in love with them. I much prefer the cheaper option in New York 2 tonight. But if let's take a look at the matchups. So it's basically going to be a hard match with Zibanejad going head-to-head with the Jack Hughes line. As bad as the Zibanejad line has been offensively, they've been pretty stout defensively. I shouldn't say stout, but solid, good enough. They're actually just below average, giving up 23 scoring chances against per 60, 10 high danger chances. Probably the best defensive line for the Rangers, but it's still not a terrible matchup for the Hughes line that was cooking before the COVID-19 shutdown. They're averaging 28 scoring chances, 4 per 60, a really impressive 12 high danger chances. So this is a line that's generating a lot of offense. I really like, what I saw from Jesper Bratt. Obviously he missed the start of the season, but when he came back in the lineup, he showed out pretty well. He was flying around quite a bit. So I liked what I saw in the brief stint that we got out of Jesper Bratt. So obviously with him being only just 2,500, the DraftKings minimum tonight, a lot of interest there. Janssen also the minimum. So given it's, the amount of success that they've had, to this point in the season, in a pretty good matchup. I obviously like New Jersey 1 quite a bit with that, in that price point. Again, we talked about it yesterday with the Sabres. You really don't know what you're going to get, right? Like coming off of a long break, it's hard to project exactly, how good they're going to be. It's tough. It's something weird that we've got to deal with. I'm not going to put too much stock into it. I'm just going to kind of go into it blindly and hope that they come out flying. The Sabres, for all intents and purposes, were pretty solid yesterday through 2 periods, and then they got literally 0 shots in the 3rd period. So, it was a kind of both sides of the argument that they were going to be rusty and, that they'll come back fine. And hopefully for us, if we're playing the Devils tonight, which I think I'm going to have some NJD 1 tonight, I hope that they come back with some vengeance and with some fire. Meanwhile, New York 2, like I mentioned, really good value for them again. Strome just 4,300, Lafreniere 3,000, Capo Kakko 3,200. So super cheap for them as well. Basically the exact same price as New Jersey 1. So you can kind of, mix and match them if you want to make multiple lineups. For New York 2, they're going to see the majority of their ice time is going to be coming against the second and third lines of the Devils. Obviously, those lines are looking a little funny these days after, missing some players due to COVID, but this is what we expect to see. Sharon Govich on the second line with Palmieri, McLeod with Wood and Bastian. That was a really solid, really heavy third line prior to their COVID shutdown. They were solid. But overall, the underlying numbers for both of those lines are pretty solid. So it's not like obviously the greatest matchup for the Rangers second line, but it's really kind of the only line that looks like it's capable of generating any offense at 5v5 for them right now. Moving Howden down or Buchnevich down with Howden really zaps any of his value. If you're trying to get somebody like Buchnevich going, putting him on Howden's wing is really not the way to do it. So from the Rangers' perspective, it really looks like the only line that's capable of doing anything, even though the matchup isn't great. The one thing that I do really like about New York 2 tonight, specifically Strome and Kakko, is that they've changed their power play units around. And with the change of the power play units comes Strome and Kakko on the top unit with Adam Fox, Chris Kreider, and Mika Zibanejad. So I do like playing New York 2 because they're so cheap and playing them with Adam Fox, who's been absolutely sensational this season. So pairing Strome and Kakko, maybe even just in a mini. If you want to leave Lafreniere off, that's fine because there's not a lot of super high-priced options tonight. If you need the salary savings, obviously playing Lafreniere and full stacking them is a really good option. But I really like the Strome, Kakko, Fox trio here on Power Play 1 just because playing two guys that are that cheap. And if you add in a third player in Lafreniere, it allows you to play Adam Fox at his elevated salary very easily. So I really like that tonight. Obviously the matchup isn't great, but if Mackenzie Blackwood doesn't start and it's Wedgwood or Comrie, then I like Rangers 2 even more tonight. I don't think either one of those goalies are all that great. Obviously, Blackwood's one of the best, but I really don't expect to see him tonight. So I really like New Jersey 1 and New York 2 in this matchup. If you've been watching the show, which obviously we've got a lot of new viewers right now, great to see you guys. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. If anybody's just popped in here, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and I will get to them. If you've been a regular of the show throughout the last month, I've been touting Pittsburgh 1 repeatedly, just kind of waiting for that breakout game. We've had some solid showings from them here and there, but they finally had that breakout game on Sunday. I think it was Crosby and Rust, or maybe it was Gensel. I don't know. Two of them had 3-point games, I believe, and then the other one had 2 points. So just a huge showing from them. And I expect to see much of the same tonight. Overall, they grade out as my top stack of the night at a +796 5v5 score. They actually are the only line really that looks like it's worth targeting in this game. Washington's top line does come out, slightly above average at +0.51, but really nothing that sticks out in comparison to some of the other lines on today's slate. It is worth noting, if you aren't aware, the Washington Capitals did shake up their line combinations quite a bit, at least just their top 6 for tonight's game, moving Kuznetsov and Oshie to the top line with Alex Ovechkin, and that bumps Backstrom and Wilson down with Verana. So obviously pretty unique looking lineup. I think that obviously whenever you've got Oshie and Kuznetsov with Ovechkin, I think that is, I don't think it matters if it's Kuznetsov or Backstrom in the middle, but I obviously prefer TJ Oshie over Tom Wilson on the wing, although Tom Wilson has, obviously been, productive on that wing throughout the years. But obviously this is a much more, appealing look. The weird thing, obviously, right now is Kuznetsov on the second power play unit, but still you get TJ Oshie and Ovechkin on the top unit. Obviously, if you want to pair them with John Carlson, obviously that's going to be a really expensive stack, but it's something that could be pretty productive. Obviously, the Penguins have had a tough time keeping the puck out of their net so far this season. Not as difficult of a time as the Capitals have. The Capitals have really struggled defensively, but Tristan Jarry, an .864 save percentage, so there's nothing really stopping you from stacking the Capitals tonight. So obviously from a 5v5 perspective, the rating doesn't look good. The DFS score is brutal, but they're still an appealing stack because they're not overly priced. You only got 5,700 for Kuznetsov, 4,400 for Oshie. Ovechkin, obviously, I don't know Ovechkin price, but I still much prefer Pittsburgh 1. If we take a look at the matchups, no real hard matching in this game. The only thing is that Washington 1 is going to see probably, we project 50% of their 5v5 ice time to come against Pittsburgh 3. And as I said, I think that's a very interesting looking line combination. I think that it's somewhere I'm going to go in the future, but this is not a good matchup. I mean, they got Zach Aston Reese back. Pittsburgh 3 did in the last game, and that trio has just been terrific defensively over the years. So it's not a good matchup for Washington 1. I think, as you can see here, they're only giving up 16 scoring chances against per 60, only 6 high danger chances, and 50% of your ice time coming against them. You're not going to generate a lot at 5v5. It's not like Washington 1 is really that amazing at 5v5 anyway. with Kuznetsov, Oshie, and Ovechkin together, they can do most of their damage on the power play. So from a 5v5 perspective, it really doesn't look like Washington 1 is going to be able to get much going tonight. Meanwhile, you got Pittsburgh 1 just with the absolute best offensive numbers on the entire slate tonight, producing at an incredible clip right now. 35 scoring chances for 16 high danger chances. Those numbers are just outstanding. So obviously, like Pittsburgh 1 a lot. If we look at their matchup, it's pretty soft. The only hard match really looks like Pittsburgh 3 against Ovechkin. The rest of the Penguins are kind of just going to roll through the rest of the lineup. And the Capitals have been pretty solid defensively so far this year, but the Penguins top line looks pretty matchup proof. We saw that the other night with them just dominating the Capitals. So I think that there's going to be much of the same for them tonight. Pittsburgh 1 looks very appealing. I think that they're going to be extremely popular tonight for obvious reasons, coming off of a hot game the other night. I think the one thing that makes them even more appealing is that their price is still lagging behind because they hadn't had that blow-up game. I'd expect next time we see Pittsburgh for that price to be much, much higher and much harder to stack them. So I would suggest getting them in tonight. All just under 6,600. It's crazy that Brian Russ is the most expensive on this line, but the fact that they're all they're all under 7,000 makes them very playable. And with some of these other pretty good value lines that are out there, we talked about Devils and Rangers have two pretty good lines that look super cheap tonight. You can play them with Pittsburgh 1 and still get in a really good goalie and some good defensemen as well. So very appealing to play Pittsburgh 1 tonight. Fernando says, you are early today. Awesome, cheap D pick with Bouchard and Toronto 1. Although any line of any game was good yesterday. Yeah, really, like yesterday was nuts. So many goals yesterday. It was wild. But Toronto 1, obviously one of the better plays. Carolina 1 went insane. We weren't on them as much. But I don't think we're going to see too many games like that out of Brock McGinn ever again. Does Letang need to be added to Pit 1? Not necessarily. I think like I just said, you could, with the other pretty good value options, and we've talked about 2, we'll talk about some more later. You can play some good defensemen with them. So I think if you are playing Pittsburgh 1, playing Letang with them makes the most sense. They all play together on the top power play unit. So the correlation wise, it makes perfect sense. If you can't afford it, if you want to stack them with another, some other higher price pieces, then Joseph makes a decent amount of sense. They correlate pretty well at 5v5, but obviously the most upside you're going to get out of a Penguins lineup is going to come with Letang on D. But you don't necessarily have to. Joseph is fine alternative, but with the other options or value options on the slate, I think that playing Letang with them makes a ton of sense. So yesterday we talked about how Buffalo 1 looked quite appealing. It's they didn't play very well. They didn't. Eichel didn't really get anything going. The defense that I was on from Buffalo did their part. Darlene had an assist. We had Colin Miller picked up 3 block shots in like 5 minutes, which was awesome. So they paid off, but overall the line as a whole didn't do much outside of Olsen, who scored the power play goal. But obviously, with the back-to-back, their numbers didn't change too much. They still grade out as the best stack for tonight's game. Jeff Skinner still just 2,900. Eichel climbed up to over 8,000. Olsen 5,500. So it's still relatively cheap. I think after getting one game under their belt, they should be a little bit better tonight. The fact that Sorokin starts instead of Varlamov, or at least expected to, bodes very well for them as well. So I like that. I like them again tonight. I think going back to them, they're going to come at super low ownership because a lot of people got burned by him yesterday. I shouldn't say a lot, like they weren't very high owned, but people did get burned by him. So you could see him at very low ownership tonight. And I think it's still a pretty good spot with Sorokin and net. So basically they're going to see the middle 6 of the Islanders, which is the Brock Nelson and the Peugeot line. Like I said yesterday, the Islanders have been pretty solid defensively, not, alarmingly good where you want to avoid them. They've been good, but not, outstanding. Obviously they were outstanding yesterday in the third period, holding the Sabres to 0 shots in a period. I don't think I've ever seen that, honestly. It's just insane, but it really looks like the only line we're targeting from a Buffalo perspective. The other 3 lines are kind of just black holes of offense at this point. Even the Taylor Hall, Eric Stahl combination hasn't really done anything. So something to keep an eye on a back-to-back. Obviously generating 0 shots in a period could lead to some lineup changes, some line shuffling. So if they do change the lines a little bit, maybe it's Hall replaces Skinner or whatever it is, It's something worth keeping an eye on because I would imagine there's some changes. Obviously, all we have to go on is last night. And based on that, I do like the Skinner Hall Olofsson combination. The other thing I really am intrigued by is Anthony Beauvillier's return tonight. It's unclear because they didn't skate this morning who he's going to play with. He's been basically attached at the hip with Brock Nelson over the last year. So I would imagine that he replaces Michael Dowd-Cole on that second line with Nelson and Eberle, bumping Dowd-Cole either out of the lineup or on the third line with Jean-Gabriel Pageau. But I would imagine that Leo Komarov, who was waived last week in preparation of Beauvillier returning, would be the guy that comes out of the lineup. So this is how I foresee things happening. With Beauvillier back, we could see Josh Bailey drop back down, reuniting the Beauvillier-Nelson-Bailey line and Eberle going back up. Excuse me. If that's the case, let's just say that is the case and Eberle's back with them. I do like Islanders 1 more, but if it sticks this way, I do like Islanders 2 more. We talked yesterday about a Nelson Eberle mini. They had a pretty good game. I think you can full stack them if Beauvillier is on this line. Beauvillier is shockingly just 2,500. He's at the minimum tonight, which is ridiculously cheap. Nelson just 4,500. Eberle is getting up there in price, almost 6K, but with these other two being so cheap, it doesn't really matter if you're full stacking them. So keep an eye on him in warmups. If he's there, I really like this line. What I did with the stats is I just went with the Nelson Eberle combination just in case it isn't Beauvillier on that line and I'm wrong. So these numbers are just Nelson and Eberle this year, and they've been really, really good, like we've talked about on the show previously. 31.9 scoring chances for 13 high danger chances. They've been much better than the Barzal line without Eberle. So New York 2 still my preferred option if you're playing them. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, their line's been heating up as well. But I just think that Islanders 2 is a little bit more reliable. See some more ice time as well. So they're a little bit more reliable. They are expected to see about 53% of their ice time against Jack Eichel's line, who's one of the worst defensive lines on the Sabres. Obviously, anybody going up head-to-head with Cody Eakin is a good thing. That's why the Barzal line is definitely still an option. The Islanders 3, I should say, is definitely still an option because they're going to see the majority of that Cody Eakin line. So I shouldn't say the majority. They're going to see the most of the Cody Eakin line out of any of the 3 top lines for the Islanders. It's still not a lot. It's mostly going to be the Islanders' 4th line, which you're not going to play them. So I think that's why Islanders 3 is still in play. That's why they do pop up. Okay, pretty close, pretty similar to the Barzal line. But again, it all kind of matters who Eberle's playing with. It seems the 5v5 numbers seem to be elevated with whichever line Eberle goes to. So if it's Nelson, Beauvillier, and Eberle, I do like them quite a bit tonight as well. Kings and Wild. So this game, obviously the Wild are just coming back. It is kind of a bizarre game. I think this is a game where you would normally be like, you know what, give me Cam Talbot, give me Kaapo Kähkönen in net. But with the Wild just coming back from COVID-19, their lineup, up front, they look fine. I'm actually pretty intrigued by this lineup configuration, finally giving Eriksson Ek a full run on the top line. Also with Fiala, it's really nice. Something's got to get Fiala going here eventually. So I do like that look of the top line. But the problem is here, their defense, there's going to be no Jared Spurgeon. There's going to be no Jonas Brodin. So that is an issue for sure. We talked about how the Ducks looked like a pretty decent option yesterday because the Sharks blue line was completely dismantled and they just didn't get the job done. So does it matter? Maybe, maybe not. I would imagine, obviously Kalen Addison, Dakota Mermis, Matt Bartkowski, not regular NHL names. So it is a little worrisome for a team that plays as good defensively as the Wild do. Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin are 2 terrific two-way defensemen. So it's massive loss for them. But they do get Matt Dumba back at least, which is good. And I do have some interest in Minnesota's top line, Parise, Eriksson, Ek, and Fiala. It looks like a good top line. The problem is, though, that they don't grade out great in the score. They do grade out as the best line in this game overall on the entire slate. They're about, I think, 6th or 7th. But they are going to see a good amount of the Anze Kopitar line tonight. So that's obviously not ideal. 29% of the Anze Kopitar line. I think it could be a little bit higher when it boils down to it, because the Kings are going to want to get Kopitar out there as much as possible because it really looks like the only line that's super dangerous. Obviously, Kaprizov has been pretty good this year. Greenway's really coming into his own. So that second line is dangerous, but I think if you're the Kings, you're going to want to match Kopitar against that top line as much as possible. The problem is, though, that's really the only line that can score for the Kings too. And Eriksson Ek is so good two-way that maybe they're going to try to avoid that matchup. So it's going to be interesting right now. We kind of have it as just, no hard matching really across the board, kind of just a mix of everybody. And if we look at the numbers, I don't know why this game is above the other one, but whatever. Really good numbers from the Eriksson Ek, Parise, and Fiala combination. 15 high danger chances for is really impressive. 27 scoring chances for. Really good numbers across the board. And as you can see, obviously the Kopitar line really good. The other lines not so much in terms of playing defense and really generate nothing offensively. So I don't really have a whole lot of interest in the rest of the Wild lineup. I don't, they're not deep enough to kind of go outside of whoever's playing with Joel Eriksson Ek, it seems like right now. If you wanted to add Kaprizov into the mix, that's fine, just to get some power play correlation. And, he's just dangerous enough by himself that he could get something done. But most of my interest comes in this top line because, like I said, it's basically whoever's on the wings with Eriksson Ek at this point that's worth playing. The Kings, their top line grades out above average, but nothing great. I think that the Wild are so solid defensively, it's hard to get a good idea of what's going to happen tonight. Like on a normal night, it's not a matchup that I want to play LA1 in. But without Brodin and Spurgeon, I think that there is a possibility they have a pretty good night. It's so hard to predict. So I think LA will see a little bit of ownership, but not a lot. So they are a nice contrarian option, but they are fairly expensive. So given their, I would say lack of upside really, because they're not like this, juggernaut offensive line, I don't think it's really worth paying, next to 16,000 for them in a matchup that could still be pretty brutal. The Wild could really just kind of shut things down and play some very defensive hockey to try to protect some of those, other defensemen that aren't Jonas Brodin and Jared Spurgeon. But, the Kings, you could still get away with it, but I do think that Kaapo Kähkönen is plenty good enough in net that it might not matter much. So anyways, in short, I think that Minnesota 1 is kind of the only one that really intrigues me in this game. I really just like the look of that top line. And as I mentioned, Parise, Eriksson Ek, and Fiala, a lot of success together in the past, specifically Parise and Eriksson Ek as just a duo. Then the last game of the night, you've got the Golden Knights and the Avalanche, Marc-Andre Fleury and Philip Grubauer story. Cale Makar is a game-time decision, although it doesn't look promising. It looks unlikely that he will play, so I wouldn't expect to see him. Meanwhile, Shay Theodore will be back for the Vegas Golden Knights. So what that does for the Vegas Golden Knights, it looked like, so it's kind of annoying. They didn't really say what the units were. They did say, however, that Theodore is back on the top unit. So I would imagine that means that Pietrangelo bumps back down to the second unit with Martinez. It could be Pietrangelo and Theodore on the top unit, although we haven't seen that a ton. So this is what I'm expecting to see. Either way, it's good news for Shay Theodore. For sure he's going to be on the top unit, and he's obviously a pretty good option tonight. If we look at the game scores or the 5v5 scores as a whole, looks like a pretty good game here to target. Obviously, the other night it was 1-0. I think that because of that, we could see some discounted ownership here. I think that more people will flock to the Pittsburgh-Washington game because of how high scoring it was on the weekend and how low scoring this game was. So if you played that 2-game slate, if you stack this game, you kind of got burned, right? So I think that's going to have an effect on tonight's slate overall, but it looks like a slate that or a game that could produce some offense. Vegas 2 comes out on top. Vegas 1 just behind them, and then Colorado 1 right behind them. Obviously, Colorado 1, one of the best lines in hockey in a normal circumstance. Without Gabriel Landeskog, the numbers aren't quite as good. So I keep getting this weird connection thing. So if you guys are having a hard time hearing me, let me know. And if I'm coming through clear, maybe let me know too, just so I know that I'm coming through okay. With all this snow, my internet's being a little spotty. So Vegas too. The Carlson line is expected to hard match against the McKinnon line, which is, if we look at it here, not a great matchup. The Carlson line has been pretty good. You're good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I keep getting this weird notification, but whatever. If I'm coming through good, that's good. So yeah, not a great matchup for Colorado 1, but obviously they're a line that is so dangerous and plays so many minutes that it shouldn't really matter. They came off a long break. Didn't look great in that game. Obviously got shut out. So there is some interest in that line tonight, which is Brandon Saad, Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen. Obviously pretty expensive when you're talking about McKinnon and Rantanen, but Brandon Saad at 3,300, that's a really good price. It's not a guy that's like this crazy offensive talent, never has any power play production either. But at 3,300, playing with McKinnon and Rantanen and seeing a lot of usage there at 5v5, I think he's a fine, one-off play, 3,300. But if you want to full stack them, it's okay. I think the issue is that Marc-Andre Fleury has been terrific. The Golden Knights have been just, they're just an absolute wagon, and they're so good at 5v5. It's hard to get anything going. They're really good on the penalty kill as well. So it's not like McKinnon's going to be ripping bombs on the power play all night long either. So it's not a great matchup. Obviously, there's going to be nights where we're really going to want to stack Colorado 1. It's obviously nerve-wracking whenever you have to fade McKinnon and Rantanen, but I think if there's ever a matchup like in this Western division that you can kind of not confidently, but you're okay with doing it, is against Vegas. Meanwhile, the Pacioretty line is expected to see about 73% of their overall 5v5 ice time against the top 6 of the Avalanche, who have been giving up quite a bit at 5v5. So I think that I like the Vegas side of things more in this game again. Their lines have just been absolutely outstanding. They're both going to see a lot of the Avalanche top 6, which is the trouble, right? Like they're the ones that have struggled defensively. The Avalanche bottom 6 has been much tighter, at least with the way the lineup's currently configured. So I think I like Vegas' side of the puck more this tonight. I think I've said it in the past. I think my preferred option is to go with Vegas too, just because they're so much cheaper. Marchessault, Carlson, and Smith, super cheap tonight. Just full stack them at 13,000 is ridiculous. Overall the production hasn't been outstanding. It's been solid, but given their underlying numbers, I think obviously there's a chance for a blow up game whenever they're out there. Averaging 36 scoring chances, 4/60, 12 high danger chances, just outrageous numbers. And a good matchup tonight. So. They're my preferred play. Obviously, Pacioretty always soaks up a lot of ownership because his shot volume is elite, but the salary savings is massive. I memean, it's a full $5,000 to full stack, and you do get a little bit of power play 1 exposure with Carlson. So you can still stack him with Theodore. If you want to go a little bit cheaper, Martinez is a really good option because he's just an absolute shot blocking machine. So. In this game, I think my preference is Vegas 2. It allows you to still, you can still easily play them with Pittsburgh 1. And if we want to look, kind of at the overall number, those are my top 2 stacks in terms of the numbers tonight. The 5v5 stacks likes Pittsburgh 1 and Vegas 2 quite a bit. So I think that's, given the price, I think that's obviously a really strong option. Vegas 1 and Colorado 1 both come out, very close to the top, but, really expensive, very difficult to play them. Obviously a little bit easier to play them because Stevenson and Saad are so much cheaper, so you can squeeze them in with Pittsburgh 1 if you want to. But I think Vegas 2, obviously you can do that much easier, play some other of the key pieces on, that correlate with them on the power play and maybe a better goalie. So, if you guys want to talk goalies a little bit, and then we'll get some punty defensemen, kind of the staple of the show. So Shesterkin at 8,200 concerns me a little bit. It's just I like Shesterkin in this spot, just given the fact that the Devils are coming off of this long delay. But I do have interest in that Hughes line. If Shesterkin was like 7,600 or something, I would have a lot more interest. But at 8,200, I think it's just a little too pricey, considering they might not win this game. I mean, the Rangers really aren't doing anything right now, so it's hard to really put a lot of trust in him at 8,200. Wedgwood at 7,100 is relatively intriguing, whether it's Wedgwood, whether it's Comrie. Obviously, if Blackwood starts, he is maybe the best goaltending play on the slate just because he's 7,100 and he's ridiculously good, and the Rangers have had offensive troubles thus far. So if Blackwood plays, he's outstanding. If it's Comrie or if it's Wedgwood, not really a whole lot of interest. They're just, like I said, it's hard for me. Like, I'll play a goalie at 7,100 in a tough matchup, but it's not going to be Eric Comrie or Scott Wedgwood. So not a whole lot of interest in that one for me. Tristan Jarry's just struggling a little too much overall this season to play him at 8,000 against Alex Ovechkin. And I like Pittsburgh one way too much to target Vanacek, so I'm not really all that interested there. Sorokin, I don't know why his price isn't on the website, but he's 7,900. It's hard. Like, honestly, all these goalies suck tonight. It's going to be brutal trying to pick the right goaltender. So maybe you do just go with the cheapest one. But Sorokin at 7,900, he hasn't been good enough to really warrant that. Although, if they can shut the Sabres down, like they did last night, and keep them to the outside, like Barry Trotz likes to do, then I think he's okay. I just really haven't seen enough from him to be all that interested tonight. And Carter Hutton's terrible, so I'm not playing Carter Hutton. Jonathan Quick at 7,100. Again, I think that I think if it's Cal Peterson, which it might be confirmed by now, or at least likely by now, considering I haven't been on. Shesterkin is 7,300 on FanDuel. See, now that's much more doable. 7,300 on FanDuel for Shesterkin, that's fine with me. I think all in all, that has kind of like 3-2 written all over it, in my opinion. Either way, I think it's going to be, moderately low scoring. So at 7,300 on FanDuel, yes, Shesterkin's much better play on FanDuel than he is DraftKings. If Cal Peterson starts, I do like Cal Peterson. He's 7,300 opposed to Jonathan Quick's 7,100. Like I mentioned, it might have happened while I've been live here. I'm not 100% sure. But if it is Peterson 7,300, he's a terrific play. He's been really good. He's been one of the best goaltenders in terms of like goal saved above average this year, or goal saved above expected, I should say. He's been really good in his last couple starts. So I do like Peterson at 7,300. It should be him. He's their goaltender of the future. They need to stop riding Quick as hard. So Peterson at 7,300, probably my favorite goalie play of the night. Although I do, on the other side, I don't mind Kakkonen either. Like, I think this is definitely a game the Wild can win. If Jonathan Quick starts, then Kakkonen's even better, because then it's definitely a game they can win. Quick's just not the same goalie he used to be. So I prefer Peterson if he starts over Kakkonen. If it's Quick, I do like Kakkonen. 7,900. There should be a decent amount of shot volume tonight. Opposed to what they normally see, just because of the defense is a little bit lacking there. Obviously, Marc-Andre Fleury is 7,700. So given how good he's been, 944 save percentage, I do like Fleury a little bit. It's not the greatest matchup, but it's not like the Avalanche are at 100% right now. So I do like, getting Fleury at a relatively discounted price because of the matchup at 7,700. He's probably my second favorite goalie play of the night. Grubauer has been really good too, 937 save percentage, goals against average under 1.7. So he's been really good, but I just think that Vegas is just a little too good they should handle a short-handed Avalanche team. Not handle them, but like they should win this game. So for just the $200 price difference between Grubauer and Fleury, I think I have a slight lean towards Fleury there in a game that they should win. So, the goaltending options are spotty tonight. I guess it depends which site you're playing on. Obviously, Shesterkin at 7,300 is a little more intriguing on FanDuel. But like I said, I don't play FanDuel, so I can't really help you guys there. If you guys want it, if you guys have any FanDuel specific questions, just, that's fine. I'll answer them. But it would be helpful if you drop like their prices. Like Alvin did, it helps me navigate that, because I can't just have all their prices up, because like, imagine how messy this page would be if I had everybody's price. I'd lose it. Now let's talk about some defensemen. So Shay Theodore getting back at 6,500. Obviously, if you're playing Vegas, either side of Vegas, 1 or 2, I think he's a solid play. He's obviously been a little bit quiet as of late, but he's fine. I think Martinez is still probably my preferred play from Vegas, just because his floor is so good. With the shot blocking, it slowed down a little bit in recent games, but Colorado's a good enough team that they're going to generate some shots. And at 5,600, you get a pretty good discount from Theodore. So I do like Martinez quite a bit. I think my preferred option though would be Adam Fox. He's just been terrific. He's just $100 more. I do like playing him with New York 2 tonight. As I mentioned earlier, his usage is just through the roof right now. He's 27 and 26 minutes in his last 2 games. He's regularly over 24. So Adam Fox's usage at 5,700 is really, really, really strong. Chris Letang, super cheap, still at 5,000. Like, you can basically full stack that Penguins power play for next to nothing. So love Chris Letang with Pittsburgh 1 tonight. Moving down the list a little bit, I do like Rasmus Dahlin again, just because with, it doesn't look like McCabe or Montour are going to be back tonight. So with that being said, sorry, let me turn that off. With that being said, he played 25 minutes last night. So it's, the usage is going to be terrific without some of their key defensemen in the lineup, and that's why I like Rasmus Dahlin tonight. Justin Schultz, not really all that interested. Moving down, I do like Pierre Joseph again. He's just 3,400 playing on the top pair with Chris Letang, so lots of usage. Not over 19 minutes a night the last 2 games, so really like him. If you can't afford Letang, then going to him is a fine option. Correlates very well with Pittsburgh 1 at 5v5. Moving down to the really cheap defenseman that you can play, Cale Clag still remains in play as a one-off from the Kings. The usage has been terrific for him in recent games. Lots of shots, sprinkling in the block shots as well. So decent floor for him at just 3,100. Bowen Byram is another one that's pretty interesting. Without Cale Makar the other night, he played 23 minutes. So if Cale Makar happens to be out again, I really like Bowen Byram at 2,900. It is only a matter of time before he gets that first goal. He's been kind of around it quite a bit. So I think that he's a fine play at 2,900. Even if he doesn't score, just the usage alone without Makar in the lineup is worth that price tag. There was a couple other guys. Obviously, where is he? Mike Matheson has been, relatively solid since coming back. Over 20 minutes all 3 games since returning. His DK production has been solid enough for 2,600, so a little bit of interest in him. Scott Mayfield's another guy that just kind of always seems to be blocking shots. Obviously at 0 last night, but plays a lot, blocks a lot of shots. So at 2,600, it's hard to really go wrong there. But I think my favorite at the bottom again has to be Colin Miller. 3 block shots last night, played over 22 minutes. So given their, how many players they're missing on the back end there, it's worth playing him because his usage is going to be really good tonight. And he is, minimum price. There was one other guy I thought that I wanted to talk about, but I can't seem to find him. So that must be it. Unless anything changes, obviously, those are my favorite. I think that Dmitry Orlov, the fact that he's down to 2,500, that's the other guy I want to talk about. He's just so cheap. Obviously, like, he doesn't have a tremendous amount of upside, but he is a guy that can block shots, has blocked shots in the past, can get involved a little bit in the offense. And the fact that he's just 2,500, that's ridiculously cheap for Dmitry Orlov, excuse me. He's usually a guy that, hovers around 3,500, maybe even more. So for 2,500, Dmitry Orlov is really good. Let's see here. Need one D-man. Pulak at 4,700, Dahlin 4,600, Fox at 45. Fox, 100%. Has to be Fox. Fox only 4,500 on FanDuel. Maybe I need to play FanDuel. That's crazy. Yeah, Fox 100% at 45. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, if you want to take a look at this big board, if you guys have any more questions, I'll stick around here for a minute or two to answer any questions you might have as we close out the show. Back to regularly scheduled programming tomorrow, 5:15. Like I said, if you just kind of showed up for this show here at the end, had to drive. FanDuel just never raises Fox's price for some reason. It's hilarious. I got to play FanDuel, I guess. Yeah, I had to drive the wife to work this morning because we got 2 feet of snow last night, and her little car was definitely not going to handle it. I live out in the county, so it's like the snow drifts like in my driveway on the road were just massive. Once you got to the main road, it's not too bad, but getting out of here was brutal and was never going to happen in her little car. So I had to drive her. Going to have to pick her up from work. That's why we came on early today. But back to regularly scheduled programming. Not expecting a snowstorm tonight. So back to 5:15 tomorrow. I think we got a pretty good slate for a Wednesday. The week's kind of reversed because Monday was a holiday. So Monday was busy. Tuesday a little bit less busy, although a nice 5-game slate tonight. I like this. This is going to be a good slate. No Trouba love tonight. Trouba's fine. I always like Trouba as kind of a substitute to Fox. So I definitely have a little bit of Trouba love if you can't fit Fox. Trouba's fine at 4,600. But Trouba was much more appealing when he was under 4,000 on DraftKings. Now that his price is coming up and you're kind of closing that gap between Trouba and Fox, Fox is just, much preferred. Sign up for Natural Stat Trick. Love it. Yes, Natural Stat Trick is incredible. That's where all this data comes from. So hat tip to them. This wouldn't, all this stuff wouldn't be possible without their fantastic resource. So Natural Stat Trick, give it a look. They are outstanding. But I think that's it. No more questions, it seems like. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please smash that like button. It helps a lot on YouTube. If you're only watching on Twitter, that's fine. Maybe go over to YouTube after and smash the like button. Helps a lot. And then if you haven't already, please subscribe. We're picking up subscribers every single day. I think that we're going in the right direction. We keep picking up new listeners today. Up at one point today, we were up over 200. Obviously, a lot of them didn't like what they were hearing, I suppose, and took off. But I really appreciate all you guys. We seem to have a nice loyal fan base here so far. So keep coming back. Make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and we will see you guys back here for what I believe is a pretty big slate for Wednesday. So good luck tonight. Let's win some money, and we'll see you guys back here 5:15 tomorrow.